Hey guys, what is going on? It is your good buddy Sam, and it is time for another exciting Max MSP tutorial. So, what is the goofy premise to this one? I don't know. Let's see. So, basically, last week or so, I had a show in Tel Aviv. I did notice that none of you were there. That's fine. I assume it was an act of peaceful protest towards Benjamin Netanyahu's handling of the recent peace accord between the United States and Iran. That's fine. I understand your reasoning. Um, Without getting too political, let's leave all that behind and let's dive into the world of Max. So, basically, in that performance, I made some use of this technique that I mean, let's call a spade a spade. I stole it completely from this other cool video on MaxMSP live coding that I saw on YouTube, and I will post that link um, in the description. But basically, it relied on this really simple technique for building audio textures, where all that you really do is you start with a sound source in, like an easy ADC, and you got your sound source out, your easy DAC. Obviously, you've got the traditional stuff in the middle, your good old God-fearing salt of the earth gain tilde, and then what's in the middle is what's interesting. So basically, you've got a tap in, and a tap out. As you obviously know, the tap in and tap out are represented delay line, and unlike the delay tilde object, the tap in tap out can feed back onto itself. And of course, the drawback, the problem with that is that tap in tap out uses the smallest delay you can achieve is one signal vector. Maximus P, like many audio applications, processes audio in chunks called a vector or a buffer, or I don't know, whatever you want. In any case, tap in, tap out can't delay anything smaller than that, unlike delay tilde. Of course, now with gen tilde, you can get around that, but let's just stick with what we know, shall we? So, the way this techniques works, I don't know. Anyway, so normally you've got your tap in, tap out, and if I say something now to this, Benjamin. Oh, look, it comes back a second later. Isn't that nice? It's an echo. It's more of my voice than you could possibly want. And then, of course, you also know that you can, nothing stops you from throwing in a, multiplier here. So you might say multiply the output by the input and feed it back and get something like this going on. A kind of endless echo. Takes my voice and makes it even more omnipresent than you could possibly desire. So, what does this technique do? Well, obviously you know that if you increase this number here beyond 1, then instead of getting quieter and quieter with every repetition, my voice would get louder and louder, and before long this audio line would explode. There are a couple ways of dealing with this, though, and each of them produces its own interesting affect. Let's start with an object called omx.peaklim. omx.peaklim is very basically compression. All that it does is look at the signal coming into it and compress that signal, which is to say scale it down if that signal has certain properties. In particular, what omx.peaklim is doing is saying if your audio signal looks like this, and say +1, oh man, I suck at Inkscape. No, I want a line. Yes. Say that your, can I do it again? No. Say that your signal looks like this, but +1 is here and -1 is here. Then what omx.peaklim will do, what omx.peak, no, we can't have that. Let's at least fill that black. Oh my god. That looked like an arrow? Kind of. What omx.peaklim will do is take this whole thing, notice that this amount is too much, or this amount is too much past the peak, and it will scale your audio waveform down so that it looks smaller and fits between those two +1 and -1 lines. Hopefully, that made more sense after I drew it, making the painful process of watching me try to draw an Inkscape worthwhile. So, see, it exceeds the peak by a certain amount, peaklim scales it down, and it looks like this. So you can hop back into Maxland, population your genius, and you can throw this peaklim in there, and once again we've got some audio flowing through our tap in, tap out here. But now with peaklim in here, you can go ahead and make this times tilde whatever you want. You can even make it something crazy, like 10. getting louder and louder every time around. But peak limb is doing the job of making sure it never explodes. It's not so interesting when our delay time is only a second. We can make our delay time something much smaller, like 25 milliseconds. Now what's really interesting is I've created this delay line with an evolving texture that I can basically kind of sing into, and excuse me for singing, I apologize, as I always do before singing, but you'll hear it's interesting. You can kind of shape this texture with your voice. It's very nice. Enjoy. Anyway, so that's peak limb in action there, and if you change this number around, I mean, play with it yourself, but you'll see, playing with these numbers around, basically what this number sort of does is affect how much of the texture is dependent on your voice, and how much is dependent on the people. So anyway, that's something to play around with. Another option instead of peak limb, and let's go ahead and make a switch, switch tilde? No. Selector tilde 3, 1, integer box here. So one thing that's nice, and I'm just going to make it so that we're taking this 0.95, passing it through one of our 3 options. So I've already given it away. There are going to be 3 choices here. By default 1, so let's make sure this works. Blah, 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 yeah. Okay, so instead of just limiting the peak, the next thing you can do, obviously, is just chop the peak off. So what that looks like is, if we're back in Inkscape Town here, instead of ooh, that's not what I want. Oh no, oh gosh, oh gosh, oh geez. Instead of scaling, no, why are you grouped all of a sudden? Oh, because instead of scaling this thing down to make it look like this, it could just chop everything off. So what that would look like, imagine, oh my god, oh no, Inkscape Town, what are you doing to me? So imagine, instead of handling things by scaling this down, what you had an object to do would be something like the following. And then it would come up and stop, down and stop, up and stop, down and stop. As you can see, this is going to introduce a lot of new frequencies. That's what's really important. Each of these techniques introduces new frequency components to the sound. And as you can see, the peak limb doesn't introduce so many because it just squashes the sound instead of clipping it. But if we use a clip tilde instead, we're going to introduce lots of new frequencies, which could sound interesting. So we could make a clip tilde -1, 1, like so. Throw that in place here instead. And now if we turn our selector to use something different, to use our clip, let's hear what this sounds like. It's also a good opportunity to make a clear. Clear clears out the delay line so that we don't have to listen to what's in there anymore. And we can start afresh. Let's try it, shall we? So here's using the clip as opposed to the peak limb. Here's using the peak limb. Not so different, I guess. Here's using the clip. Maybe make this a little bit more subtle so you can hear it. Is that any better? I can't tell. Yeah, so you can maybe hear that clip has some different kind of qualities to it. It's not quite the same as peak limb. And finally, the last option on the table, we could go even crazier, and instead of clipping the waveform like this, we could wrap it around, right? We could go totally nuts and do this to our waveform. Come up, clip, make the hump like this, go back down, clip around like this. Oh my gosh, look at me, I'm the best drawer on the whole planet. Oh, except that's wrong. Oh, that should look like this. And then it would go up normally like this, little hump like so, and then back down like this. That looks terrible. But you can imagine if we took this waveform and transformed it like this using, say, a modulo tilde operator, that's what we would get. So mod tilde 1. This will be the third way that we could feasibly affect our waveform. And let's go ahead and plug this in and hear how it sounds. So here is modulo enabled. Modulo enabled. Modulo enabled. Modulo enabled. Modulo enabled. Isn't that exciting? So there's modulo, here's clip, here's peak. There's the peak clip down there. Modulo, clip, peak. Three different styles of achieving basically the same thing. But before, lest you think you were done with this tutorial, there's one more cool trick I wanted to show you to turn this thing into a crazy expressive instrument for basically nothing. So let's go ahead and add, one thing you could do in here is, in addition to all this stuff, is add in a filter. Nothing more complicated than a biquad. And you should know by now that if you make a filter, oh my god, not what I meant. If you make a filter graph, option click on this to bring up the help file, and then just copy basically this entire side of the equation. Paste that in here. It's a really simple little way to get filter controls into your patch. So we connect the selector to the biquad to the tap in, and now watch this. We're gonna go to low shelf. Is that the one I wanted? Is low shelf the one I wanted? Why am I talking like this? So we've got the low shelf selected, and let's see, low shift, modulo, clear, turn up the volume. All right, listen to this noise. This is how fast this becomes a ridiculous instrument. We can make it even more intense by bumping this up to like 25. And actually, this can become even better if you download this object from the Max Objects website called DC Blocker. DC Blocker tilde is really helpful here because what DC Blocker tilde is going to do is make sure that you're not wasting any available space in your audio range with inaudible TC, so it lets you play around with this much more easily. I think it's like 50. Forgive me, and thank you as always for letting me indulge in some meaningless twerking at the end. Yeah, that'll conclude it for this tutorial. I hope that was enjoyable for you, and feel free to play around with this technique. I stole it, so certainly you can steal it as well. I don't think really even I'm the original stealer. I think it's not to accuse the original author of stealing, but I think it's not exactly the most novel technique in the world. In any case, I hope it was enjoyable to watch and informative. I encourage you to go out and use similar techniques to make loud sounds to either entertain your artistic friends or scare your parochially minded friends, or taunt your neighbors, or express yourself, or I don't know, whatever. It's sound. Do whatever you want with it. And I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching, and have a good one. Au revoir. Au revoir.